Everyone, oh my gosh, can you believe we're in week 10 already? Crazy. So this week we read about validity and reliability in research, and Wes proposed some good questions about the two, asking will it blend? So I like that reference. So with this reading, I'll admit it was a little bit challenging for me to kind of get through. I had to reread it a few times, mainly because it wasn't as much real world application, and I think learn the best from seeing examples. So I apologize if this isn't as in depth maybe as it should be, but just that's what it is for this week. So what is the difference between reliability and validity? So the main difference between the two is just kind of what you're measuring, I suppose. With reliability, you're really focusing on, is it consistent over time? And when you're doing a measurement, it is producing the same results consistently. Whether they're valid or not is the main difference. So with validity, you're focusing more on, is the result what you intended to get, what you're measuring. So it's intended outcomes. So with validity, it's also reliable. With something's reliable, it's not necessarily valid. So I liked the example of the scale showing that. And another thing that came to my mind was when you set clocks fast. I set clocks fast around my house to make sure I'm leaving on time. So it's reliable in the sense that they're always 7 minutes fast, but it's not valid because that's not really the time. But it's consistent, and I know what time it would be by just subtracting 7 minutes. So that's kind of where my brain went to kind of look at the difference between the two. Is one more important or significant than the other? I think yes. The answer is yes. You really want to focus on validity more than reliability. However, if something is valid, it's going to be reliable as well. So with research, you want to make sure that everything is valid. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to use the data that you're getting because it's not valid. You can't use it. So I think focusing on reliability is important to a certain extent. So especially if you're just creating, like with these learners tryouts, if we're creating a measurement and we discover that it isn't valid, but we're getting consistent, reliable results, that's good, that's helpful. We can use that to kind of tweak what we're measuring and how we're asking it perhaps in order to get more valid answers. But in the long run, validity is definitely more important. That's what we're trying to measure. We're trying to get results that we can use to, prove a hypothesis or whatever it may be, or just to present findings. Especially with evaluations, you want to have valid results so that you can make decisions on programs and whatnot. So what are some ways that we can increase reliability or validity of our scores? So in the application of our project for this class, I think it's important that we are using the appropriate measures to evaluate. So what does that mean? So does that mean we are going to only do surveys for our test or our instrument, or are we going to do focus groups? What's applicable? What makes sense? What's appropriate? If you're using an inappropriate method of measurement, you're not necessarily going to get valid results. Perhaps people are not understanding the questions for the research. So if it's a survey that we're creating and our evaluative questions are not appropriately written, we're not going to get the results that we wanted or that we intended, so that therefore they're not valid. Perhaps it would be reliable, but it wouldn't be valid. And then going on with increasing reliability, you want to make sure that people who are reviewing the results of maybe it is a survey, reviewing the results of the survey, or going over interview question results, that they are kind of maybe taught to look for the same things. So I think they talk about that with the readings of inter-rater reliability, making sure the people who are reviewing it know what to look for. You don't want any bias in that sense. And that's kind of another big one, is bias, whether it's bias in the people who are reviewing, so that would be like us looking at the results, or bias in what people are answering. So reducing the bias is going to be a big way to increase both reliability and validity. So that's all I've got for this week. As I said, this was kind of a struggle for me, I'm not going to lie, to kind of wrap my head around these concepts in a research application. So I am looking forward to hearing other people's responses and seeing that, and maybe you guys can kind of provide some more insight for my response and kind of ask some more probing questions that I might not have thought of. All right, thanks.